for 20 years you had a blueprint, the Cosbys. You had him a doctor, his wife a lawyer, and those people they conducted themselves very well. They would all the stupidness that's happening with these professional people now wasn't happening in that show. I know you don't care a lot for the Cosbys, but
can I say why though? Since you brought it up, because I think a better example would have been the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I think the Cosbys is more of an example. The Cosbys is the same thing that has the same problem as Tyler Perry, but it's veiled differently. The Cosbys, it was I can't even think of the specific word, but like it was the yes sir, no sir, like type environment where it's like, all right, black people can behave like this. Therefore, if you see black people that are in a different situation than these black people in this show are in, then it is their fault and it has nothing to do with societally. And I say that because that was the rhetoric of a lot of what Bill Cosby was talking about at the time, and that's why I feel like it was called the Cosby Show as opposed to the Huxtables. One problem that I have with the Cosby Show is they never addressed actual black stuff, and you're never going to get to where they were in the world and not have to ever deal with black issues. You mean this black doctor ain't never had a problem where one of these white women was like, I don't want this nigga delivering my baby? You mean this black female attorney never had any issues with being black and female in her career? It just never came up. These black kids living in this nice neighborhood around all these other people never had an issue with being treated a specific way because they were black. That's unreasonable. So now the thing is, when people have to deal with these particular problems, whether they're trying to get into medicine, whether they're trying to get into law, and then they have to deal with black issues, it's like, all right, well, if you were unsuccessful at doing what the Cosbys did, it's probably because you didn't name your kids stuff like Theodore and Rudy, and you instead decided to, like, you feel me? You decided to go with more cultural names. It's like all of that type of stuff when it's more nuanced than that. Whereas the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, it wasn't buffoonery. They weren't acting like crazy people. They weren't playing into black stereotypes per se. However, it was very culturally relevant. Like that is how a young man from Philly would behave himself if he was to move out into the Bel-Air house. And this is how we make sure to make the most positivity out of that. If you have a young man like Carlton who was raised in the environment of Carlton, if you have a young woman like Ashley, if you have somebody like Hillary, these are real people. These are real people who deal with real stuff, and this is how you can positively deal with these real things. Whereas in the Cosby Show, they never had no black issues for me to even consider it a black sitcom. Just because it was black people on TV doesn't do it for me. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I like both of those shows, and I thought The Cosby was an excellent show, and I also thought The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was an excellent show. But I like the fact that those people, both of those shows, those people showed black people in a very, very good light.
They did, and I will give them that. I heard that Bill Cosby had. I also think a Different World, which is the Cosby spinoff, would have been a better example to use. Also, just because it had less of Bill Cosby's hands on it. Bill Cosby was the problem with the Cosby Show, by the way. I'm not saying that this is the rhetoric of every single person there. It's kind of like what I just said about that Married to Medicine show. I would watch that and recognize it as a black person that's not how all black professionals are. This is just for the means of entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Yet the Cosby Show, it wasn't just for black people. So yeah, but I will say that.
See, you can watch that, but kids watching that, they see the same thing that's happening out and about. They don't see the different. They don't see the educational level. They don't see the fact that these women are actually out there helping people in medicine and doing different things.
But also, not just the kids, white people who don't know black people would look at these shows, and it's like, something may be positive towards the black people that's watching it, and you may be, as a black person who has enough background knowledge of black culture and how black people actually conduct themselves in the real world, can look at it for the entertainment value or the message in terms of the Married to Medicine entertainment value, in terms of the Cosby Show, the message. But these shows aren't made to only be broadcast to these black people to be getting these messages. They're also sending messages to people who don't know no black people, and that's where the harm comes, where that becomes the stereotype of black people in the term of Married to Medicine, or in the terms of Cosby Show, there becomes a stereotype that, okay, well, black people that aren't in that situation because of holistic their fault. And the thing is, it gets to me because I do think that black people use being black and the fact that there is, like, statistically you could prove systematic racism as an excuse for poor behavior a lot of the time, and they yell racism in situations that a lot of the time may be their fault and not as a result of racism, and it almost turns into like a certain bullying complex. But that doesn't change the fact that that is also a minority share of black people. That's just the loudest group in the room. Most black people, when they deal with racism or something like that, it's just something that I grew up with. I'm going about my life. I'm not gonna make a hashtag out of it. I'm not gonna make a huge fuss about it. I'm not gonna go live on Instagram. I'm not gonna go live on TikTok and start complaining about it. It's just like, I walked into this store and they told me I couldn't have this job unless I cut my hair. But Brad back there has his locks. He has his surfer locks, and all they did was give him a hairnet. Like oh, I got pulled over by this police officer. They didn't shoot me or murder me, but man, he was disrespectful in the way that he spoke to me. I'm grown as heck. Why are you calling me boy? Why are you not letting me speak? Why are you like, it's microaggressions a lot of the time that's what racism has turned into, which I would rather it just be overt, but that's a whole different conversation. But a lot of the time racism is microaggressions that black people just tolerate and go on about their life. But that doesn't change the fact that it exists, and it creates this like weird dynamic where it's like,
Well, what I think more than anything that hurt black people is that they're trillions of dollars a year spenders, and they don't own anything of their own.
You know, I was actually thinking about that randomly as I was walking down here. And here's the thing, though. We'll use Tulsa, Oklahoma bombing as an example. That's what happened.
Right.
That's what happens when black people try too hard in order to own their own stuff. It's not like we've never tried before in the past, but it'd be insanity to think, because there's been a lot of black Wall Streets that have been destroyed. Maybe not all of them in the fantastic way that particular one happened, but we have in the past done what we are supposed to do financially, and they brought down all of those organizations. So it's like, are we supposed to just keep trying, seeing that they continue to destroy it, and that the only black business that the government's ever promoted and let happen be the crack trade? Well, yes, we are supposed to, but that doesn't mean that I can't understand why black people would be like, you know what? Fine. Y'all can own all the banks. Y'all can own all the grocery stores. I'm going to just take my money and I'm going to just spend it with y'all, because every single time we try to come together and do something that would keep the money in our community, y'all do y'all best to destroy it.
But see, the thing is that just because they do their best to destroy it shouldn't stop us from doing it. See, you got to realize I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and I knew Mr. Ray Grocery and all those. It was black-owned businesses in black neighborhoods. Now, blacks was saying, well, I'm not going to make Mr. Ray rich. I'm not going to make this black person rich. But now they all let the Arabs come from overseas and take those same stores, and they treat them like trash, and they're making them rich because they don't live in the neighborhood.
That's what I said at the end of my rant. Should we continue to try, even though they continue to destroy it over and over and over? Yes, we should, but I'm just saying I understand why we wouldn't. Now, for as making black people hate themselves, that's been a tool of the media ever since the first major film that it was played on the White House lawn. It had every single perspective of a black person was this like animalistic, rape-fueled, like trying to it caused the new influx of the KKK. And my thing is, I may have not properly explained myself earlier when I said that, like, black people know other black people, so they're able to take these messages with a grain of salt and understand them for what they are. The media that is out to make black people appear a certain type of way, it does also affect black people. There was black people who during the crack epidemic knew somebody who, for some whatever reason, they used to be a great upstanding citizen and they ended up on crack, and they knew that this person was good. I've known you my whole life, but I watch the news and I see what type of people crackheads are, so now I'm going to advocate for every single one of y'all to be treated in like where this much crack compared to this much cocaine is the same amount of thing. And you see how the white people handled the opioid crisis differently because it was people like them, and there hasn't been this constant message in the media subconsciously and overtly explaining to them that they're bad people. So now they could be like, all right, well, yeah, I knew this person and they ended up addicted to this pill, but like, it's not that simple. And that's the thing. I'm not saying every single person who was on crack was a good person. I'm not saying they all were bad people, but I'm just saying that the media made it seem that black and white. And it's like it lacks so much nuance in the way that we watch ourselves be perceived. And it's like we know a lot of black people, but we don't know all black people. So it's like,
and all these things that you're talking about that actually occurred in the black community, our government had something to do with it
on purpose.